The Langston mansion, with its sprawling gardens and gilded gates, had always been a symbol of wealth, influence, and power. Yet behind its marble walls, secrets simmered like water on a low flame. At the heart of it all was Eleanor Langston, the aging matriarch of the family. Once a woman of formidable beauty and elegance, Eleanor was now frail, her silver hair framing a face carved by years of experience. She had been widowed for nearly a decade, and though her son, Adrian Langston, had stepped into the role of CEO of Langston Enterprises, she still carried herself with quiet dignity. But in recent months, something had changed. She no longer attended charity luncheons. Her laughter, once warm and frequent, was seldom heard. Most troubling of all, she had grown thinner, alarmingly so. The household staff whispered that she often refused her meals, pushing plates away with trembling hands. On a rainy Tuesday morning, Eleanor sat at the long dining table, the smell of roasted chicken and buttery rolls wafting through the air. Her daughter-in-law, Clarissa, stood over her with a forced smile. Clarissa was everything the society pages adored: young, fashionable, and endlessly photogenic. But behind that glamorous facade was a sharp tongue and a heart that seemed colder than the marble floors of the Langston estate. "Come now, Mother Langston," Clarissa cooed, placing the plate before her. "You must eat something. The doctor said you need to keep up your strength." Eleanor looked at the plate, a thick slice of roast chicken drowned in heavy sauce. Her stomach churned. She pressed her lips together, her hands curling into fists. "I don't want to eat that," she whispered, her voice hoarse but firm. Clarissa's smile faltered for a split second. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. "Don't be difficult. Adrian isn't here, and someone has to make sure you don't waste away. Now eat." But Eleanor shook her head. "It doesn't taste right. It never does. Why can't I just have soup?" The tension in the air was suffocating. A maid stood frozen near the corner, unsure whether to intervene or quietly disappear. Clarissa's eyes narrowed, and she slammed the fork down onto the table, making Eleanor flinch. "Soup. Again. You're not a child," Clarissa snapped. "Do you know how humiliating it is when guests ask why you're not eating like a normal person? Do you want people to think we're mistreating you?" Tears welled up in Eleanor's eyes. She wanted to protest, to explain the gnawing unease that filled her whenever Clarissa placed food before her. But the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she pushed the plate farther away. "I said I don't want it." Before Clarissa could retort, the front doors of the mansion swung open. Footsteps echoed against the polished floor, quick and purposeful. Adrian Langston had returned home earlier than expected. The tall, broad-shouldered man strode into the dining room, his tailored suit still crisp from the office. His piercing gray eyes immediately scanned the scene, his mother pale and trembling, the plate untouched before her, and his wife standing rigid, her expression caught between annoyance and surprise. "What's going on here?" Adrian's voice was low, controlled, but the edge in it was unmistakable. Clarissa plastered on her most dazzling smile. "Darling, you're home early. I was just encouraging your mother to eat. She's been so stubborn lately, refusing meals and she said she doesn't want to eat it." Adrian's gaze flicked from his wife to his mother, softening as he crouched beside Eleanor. He took her frail hand in his. "Mother, are you all right?" Eleanor's lips quivered. For a moment, she thought about brushing it off, about keeping the peace. But the fear, the gnawing suspicion that something was deeply wrong, pushed her to speak. "I don't trust the food," she whispered. "It doesn't taste right. I keep telling her, but she won't listen." Adrian froze. His heart pounded in his chest. He looked up at his wife, whose smile had faltered once more. "What does she mean, Clarissa?" Clarissa laughed lightly, though her hands twisted nervously in her dress. "Oh, Adrian, she's just confused. You know how age can make people paranoid. She refuses to eat anything I prepare. I've been trying so hard to care for her, but she makes it impossible." But Adrian wasn't convinced. He rose slowly, his eyes never leaving her face. There was something in his mother's trembling voice, something in her fearful eyes, that sent a chill down his spine. Without another word, he pulled the plate toward himself. "Then I'll eat it," he said flatly. The room fell silent. Eleanor's breath caught, and Clarissa's eyes widened. For the first time, a flicker of panic crossed her perfectly composed face. Adrian lifted the fork with steady hands, though inside his chest thundered like a storm. He glanced at his mother, who was shaking her head desperately, lips mouthing, "Don't." Clarissa stood frozen, her manicured nails digging into her palms as she tried to mask her unease. The fork scraped against the porcelain as Adrian cut into the chicken. The smell seemed overly strong, pungent in a way he hadn't noticed before. Slowly, deliberately, he brought the bite to his mouth. Adrian. No, Eleanor whispered hoarsely, reaching for his wrist with trembling fingers. He placed his other hand gently over hers. If it's safe for you, it's safe for me, he said softly. Then, with a defiant look at Clarissa, he ate the bite. The silence afterward was deafening. Clarissa's lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes flickering with a panic she tried to disguise as irritation. Well, she asked, forcing a laugh. See, perfectly fine. Adrian chewed slowly, studying the flavor. Something about the taste unsettled him. It wasn't outright bitter or spoiled, but it lingered on his tongue in a way that didn't feel right. He swallowed, forcing calm into his features. It's unusual, he said finally. What exactly did you put in this, Clarissa? Her smile faltered for half a second before returning. A new recipe. Rosemary, thyme, a dash of special sauce I ordered online. You know how much I enjoy experimenting. Experimenting, Adrian repeated, his tone flat. He placed the fork down with deliberate care and turned to his mother. You don't have to eat this if you don't want to, mother. From now on, you eat only what you choose. Do you understand? Eleanor nodded, her eyes glistening with relief. Clarissa's expression tightened. Adrian, don't undermine me like that. I've been the one caring for her while you bury yourself in the company. She refuses everything I offer, complains endlessly. Enough. Adrian's voice cut through the air like a blade. My mother is not a burden. She is the reason we have this life. And if she tells me something feels wrong, I believe her. Always. Clarissa opened her mouth to protest, but Adrian raised a hand. We'll have the meal tested. All of it, right now. The maid in the corner gasped quietly. Clarissa's eyes widened, her composure unraveling. Tested? Adrian, that's ridiculous. What will people think if they hear the Langstons are paranoid about poisoned food? The scandal. I don't care about scandal. I care about the truth, Adrian snapped. His voice was low, but the fury in it made Clarissa take a step back. He pulled out his phone and called the family doctor, insisting on a home visit immediately. Then he turned to the maid. Clear this table, but don't throw anything away. Cover it, keep it sealed. The maid nodded quickly and began gathering the dishes. Clarissa's face flushed red. Adrian, you're overreacting. This is insulting. To me, to our marriage. Adrian turned on her, his gray eyes blazing. You think I care about appearances when my mother is wasting away? When she's terrified to eat in her own home? No, Clarissa, what's insulting is that you brushed off her fear like she was nothing. For the first time, Clarissa's mask slipped. Her eyes hardened, her voice dripping with venom. And what about me? Do you think it's easy playing nursemaid to a woman who treats me like an outsider? I've sacrificed everything to fit into this family, and still, she looks at me with suspicion. Do you know how exhausting that is? Eleanor flinched at the words, shrinking into her chair. Adrian's jaw tightened, but his hand moved protectively to his mother's shoulder. You married into this family knowing who we are, he said coldly. If you see my mother as a burden, then perhaps it's you who doesn't belong here. Clarissa gasped, eyes wide. You don't mean that, but Adrian didn't respond. He simply sat by his mother, offering her the comfort Clarissa had denied her. An hour later, the family doctor arrived with a nurse and a portable testing kit. Samples of the chicken, sauce, and even the rolls were carefully collected. Clarissa paced the room, her agitation growing with every passing minute. This is absurd, she muttered under her breath, but no one listened. The doctor promised to send results to a lab and left instructions for Eleanor's care. When they departed, the house seemed heavier, thick with tension. That night, Adrian tucked his mother into bed himself, promising her that she would never again be forced to eat what she didn't want. She clutched his hand, whispering, "Thank you, my boy. You always see the truth." As he left her room, Adrian passed the master bedroom where Clarissa sat rigid on the edge of the bed, her face pale but her eyes burning with something unreadable. You've humiliated me, she hissed as he entered. In front of the staff, the doctor, everyone. Do you think people won't talk? Adrian stared at her, his expression unreadable. I don't care what people talk about. I care about whether my mother has been deliberately mistreated in her own home. If these tests show anything suspicious, Clarissa, he paused, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Then God help you. Clarissa's breath caught in her throat, but she said nothing. For the first time in their marriage, she realized Adrian was no longer looking at her with love or admiration. He was looking at her as though she were a stranger, one who might not belong in his life at all. The following morning, the Langston mansion was eerily quiet. Rain tapped against the windows as Adrian sat in his study, staring at his phone. The doctor had promised results by noon, and Adrian's patience wore thin with every passing tick of the grandfather clock. Eleanor rested upstairs, still weak but calmer now that her son had intervened. The staff moved silently about their duties, exchanging nervous glances, as though they too felt the storm gathering within those marble walls. Clarissa appeared in the doorway, her robe tied neatly around her waist, her hair perfectly styled despite the tension of the night before. Her lips curved into a brittle smile. "Adrian," she began softly, "I know you're angry. I know last night wasn't pleasant. But can we not make a spectacle of this? Whatever the results say, let's deal with it privately. For the sake of appearances." Adrian's eyes lifted from the desk, cold and unyielding. "Appearances? You're still worried about appearances while my mother believes she's being poisoned in her own home." Clarissa's composure faltered, but she pressed on. "She's old, Adrian." Confused. "You know how paranoia creeps in with age. If you trust her more than me, then what does that say about us?" "It says everything," Adrian muttered. Before Clarissa could respond, his phone buzzed. The doctor's number lit the screen. Adrian answered at once, his voice steady despite the thundering of his heart. "Dr. Hensley, please tell me you have the results." On the other end, the doctor cleared his throat. "Yes, Mr. Langston. The tests were conclusive. The food contained traces of a compound, low doses of a sedative. Harmless in small amounts, but if administered repeatedly over time, it would cause fatigue, confusion, loss of appetite. Potentially even organ strain." Adrian's grip tightened around the phone. His gaze snapped to Clarissa, who stood frozen in the doorway. "Are you saying my mother's condition was caused by this food?" Adrian demanded. "Yes, drive," Hensley confirmed. "The compound isn't something you'd find by accident. It was introduced deliberately." Adrian's chest burned with fury. "Thank you, doctor. I'll handle it from here." He ended the call and rose slowly from his chair. The silence between him and Clarissa was heavier than stone. Her face had gone pale, her eyes darting wildly as though searching for an escape. Finally, she whispered, "Adrian, I can explain." "Explain." His voice cracked like a whip. "Explain how my mother has been slowly poisoned under my roof. Under your care. Do you realize what you've done?" Clarissa lifted her chin, desperation etched across her features. "I wasn't trying to kill her. I wanted her quiet. She was always criticizing me, always making me feel like I didn't belong. You never defended me, Adrian. Never. So yes, I gave her something to keep her calm, to make her stop fighting me. But I swear, I never meant real harm." Adrian stared at her in disbelief, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "You drugged my mother because you felt uncomfortable. Because you wanted her silence." Tears streamed down Clarissa's face, mascara smudging. She fell to her knees, clutching at his arm. "Please, Adrian, I did it for us. For our marriage. Don't throw me away for her. She's old, she's fading. We have our whole lives, don't let her ruin it." Adrian yanked his arm free, his voice thundering through the study. "She is my mother. The woman who built everything we have, the woman who raised me after my father died. And you think I would choose you, the woman who tried to erase her, over her? You disgust me." Clarissa sobbed, her mask completely shattered. "Please, don't leave me. Don't ruin me." Adrian's gaze was ice. "You ruined yourself the moment you decided her life was disposable." He stepped past her, calling for the head butler. When the man appeared, Adrian's command was sharp and final. "Pack her things. She leaves this house today. And inform security, she's not to step foot on these grounds again." Clarissa's cries echoed through the mansion as the staff moved to obey. For the first time, her beauty, her charm, her carefully constructed facade meant nothing. She was nothing but a broken woman cast out of the empire she thought she had claimed. Adrian ascended the staircase, his anger softening as he reached his mother's room. Eleanor looked up at him with tired but hopeful eyes. "It's over, mother," he said gently, taking her hand. "You were right, and I will never let anyone harm you again." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they were tears of relief. "I knew you'd see the truth, my boy. Your father would be proud." Adrian bent and kissed her forehead. "From now on, you'll eat only what makes you comfortable. And I'll share every meal with you. No more fear. No more cruelty. Outside, the rain cleared, and sunlight broke through the clouds, casting a golden glow across the mansion. Inside, a son had chosen love, loyalty, and justice over vanity and deceit. Clarissa's name would soon be whispered in society circles as a cautionary tale, but for Adrian, none of that mattered. What mattered was that his mother was safe, and that the Langston legacy would never again be tainted by someone who mistook cruelty for control. And as Eleanor rested peacefully for the first time in months, Adrian stood watch at her side, vowing silently that he would guard her dignity until her final breath.